is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review a collaboration album between hip-hop producer DJ Muggs and hip-hop artist Roc Marciano. Basically, this product is called Kaos, and it came out in the fall of 2018. So the thing about this particular product is just the fact I don't know a super ton about Roc Marciano. I remember seeing him in a couple of ads in like the Double XL magazine back in like the mid 2000s. As far as those fairs kind of happen, he was like a prominent kind of East Coast artist in like the underground scene. I looked him up a little bit in Wikipedia. Apparently he was like seen as like the godfather of like underground rap within the pitch behind it, which has a relative type tone. You can tell just within the pitch he seems to be more within like the graceful kind of mafioso type boundness within the pitch behind, which is some good type fare. It's pretty dope that he crossed paths with DJ Muggs. I want to see what this is particularly about. DJ Muggs in particular produced a pretty classic album in 2018 with Cypress Hill when he basically helmed the project Elephants on Asses. I wanted to see if that production fair continues into other projects as far as those fairs going to happen, or if it's just a fluke with Cypress Hill. So it's some good type pitch. It's a relatively balanced album here. I liked a good chunk of this particular product. Now I realized the thing about this, I looked it up on Rate Your Music. It says that this is kind of more in like the drumless type territory as far as those pitches going to happen, which I look after. There's kind of like a relaying type theme. There's not really any club type song on here. A lot of floaty kind of New York type vibes, typical of like 90s East Coast hip hop as far as those pitches going to happen. If you're looking for songs like by some of those folks like Mobb Deep and Nas in certain cases, and like Old Dirty Bastard, some of those type folks that would have a lot of like, there's a good assortment and chunks of just like some Hotbox the Whip type songs kind of get within that fair. Definitely appreciate the concept. So this is basically like an album to just kind of have just being amongst like the city traffic, a little bit vehicle bound, but not quite as full blown while they're just in the big city. But it's just kind of the concept of just out and about, kind of on the go type traverse within the pitch. Not really like not really like an in one spot kind of club bop on here. Not really any lady songs, any true full blown. I mean, there's smoking songs in here, but it's just kind of within the product of just being out and about more so than like a designated spot for smoking. So it's just within the pitch. This has a little bit more bustle about it, just without the actual hustle fury of going out and getting money and posting up on spots and just some of that type fare, just the money grubbiness and some of that type fare. So it's just, it has the context of having money within the pitch, but it just is, like I said, it's just a very in motion type project within the tone, but not so much within the hustle mentality. So it's a good type fare to kind of get that. And on top of that, this kind of continues some of that mafioso type vibe of like the East Coast type flair from like the 90s. Now obviously I don't know as full bound how many projects kind of continue this particular vibe, but I do think that mafioso type rap is kind of like a subgenre within a relative type pitch. So it's just within the fare of kind of getting that particular type of appeal. There is at least one single on this product, which is the song Shit I'm On, which is a pretty excellent type pitch. Kind of get this one on here. It's some excellent type fare, kind of see that. But yeah, the thing about Roc Marciano is just the pitch that he continues to be underground, and he basically just remained in the underground. I want to say it's not very likely that he has any charting rap singles within the pitch behind it. And it's not super common that you're going to get someone like Lil Wayne or Nelly or Ludacris to really have done a song with him as far as this pitch can happen. Just more folks that would have been more in like the commercial spotlight. But this is some good stuff here, I'd have to say, within that tone. Once again, it's great that he crossed paths with DJ Muggs, and he's pretty good lyricist within these tones as far as those pitches can happen. So it's some good type, very nice balanced project. So yeah, the single off this project, the single like I was saying was Shit I'm On. This like a glimmering kind of graceful date evening and sophistication kind of get here. It's an affable kind of elegance about this song, and it's definitely like some minty kind of outing fair, I'd have to say, just within the pitch behind it. So it's just a good type step out. Basically it just reminds me of something that probably Biggie or Puff Daddy would have done within the pitch if they had continued that mafioso vibe from like 96, 97, some of those type fairs. I'd say just a good type concept, just long trench coat type music, just within the concept, just within that particular fair, is looking like you're in a Goodfellas movie or Carlito's Way, one of those type pitches, I'd have to say. But the definite thing about Shit I'm On is it just reminds me of like some restaurant type music, just a graceful kind of have like some pasta, some of that type fare, just spaghetti and meatballs, some of that type stuff, linguine, some of that type good stuff, just to really appreciate the times. Go to like a 3-star, 4-star restaurant, dine in, just have like white plates and some of that type fare, fancy silverware as far as those pitches kind of have with it, and some wine glasses, some of that type good stuff kind of get within that tone. So some good type pitches for that, good change of paces within the affability. I do like the relative mellowness of this particular song. It's a real graceful type one to kind of have that conduct of just not so much just full blown getting tore up, but just within the pitch of just having like some extra kind of just step out within like a more kind of like pulling off the vibe of just making kind of more like pulling out the vibe of just making like a more kind of cultivated type aspect, not quite as square like as far as this pitch can happen. So it's a good type tone. But yeah, so out of 10 songs on this product, really it feels like there's more 9 songs. I'm gonna count like the Chaos theme. The first song you hear on here is like more of like an intro kind of half song just within the pitch. I'd say it's more 9.5 songs that are on here just because the pitch that I mean, Chaos theme just reminds me of like a movie kind of interim, like some sort of transaction where the hero gets ready to go to like an action scene, something like that, something that would kind of be in like a Mission Impossible movie or some of those type pitches I'd had to say, but I didn't really appreciate that one. But basically, out of the 10 songs on here, I wound up recommending 6. So the pitch behind it, the 4 songs I don't recommend would be Chaos theme, like I was saying, which I'm just gonna halfway count, and then White Dirt, Wild Oats, and Wormhole. So the pitch behind some of these, basically White Dirt was just kind of an awkward type one just within the pitch. I mean, that one just didn't have as much composition about it. That one, I mean, the thing about this particular project is just the fact that the production amalgamation on here sticks with like a relative kind of theme, that a lot of this drumless type factor. I like DJ Muggs as a producer most of the time, but it's just within the pitch that he kind of grafted to more of like Roc Marciano's taste, is looking within the pitch. And I realized that in more recent years, DJ Muggs has kind of gone with more East Coast type fare as far as those pitches kind of happen. He kind of switched from like the vibes he had back in like the early 90s with Cypress Hill. But this is kind of the concept of getting some of these type ones. This really makes you question the direction where you listen to some of these particular type songs. I feel like it's just kind of the typical type fare like mafioso type rap, but just the appeal behind it when the production fare is not alarmingly good or something like that. It just doesn't really have as much bite. That's an example of a poor one, is White Dirt. Wild Oats is kind of the same fashion. This is kind of like a trippy kind of Middle Eastern type beat on here. This feels a little bit more like DJ Muggs within the pitch behind it, but this is still not an entirely affable type one. This one kind of stood out, and like Wild Oats kind of sticks out like a sore thumb in terms of the fashion behind it as far as those flares kind of happen. Just didn't really have as much pizzazz as far as the pitch behind that particular fare. I mean, for the most part, I probably would have liked another song like Shit 'Em On or Rolls Royce Rug, some of those type ones, along with like a relative kind of club song. I just question if like the possibility of Roc Marciano being able to describe to DJ Muggs saying that he wants something for like a night venue, something to really mellow out to just within the pitch, but just kind of having the concept of something that can get the dance club gyrating pitches like that, but within the concept of fitting the theme of the project. And I just question how that particularly would have turned out, because there's just not really much. There is pizzazz on this project, but apart from like the song Caught a Lick, there's really not much of any sort of relative jive about this project. It's a lot more sleepy and drowsy, just with the kind of mafioso type gracefulness as well. It has to say it's just within the tone, but I just look after Wild Oats was just kind of a trippy type one. Maybe in some fashions you would almost be able to smoke this, but it doesn't feel as much like a good head trip, I'd have to say. And then Wormhole is just kind of a lengthier type song that just didn't have a good pitch either. It has to suppose about that one. This was kind of another one that was like White Dirt, that just didn't have the aspect of really having something that really amalgamated within the transaction kind of about it. Just the construction of that particular one. Wormhole is just not very synchronized, and then the beat switch up later just didn't really translate that well either, so it's just kind of a more awkward type one that just didn't have a lot of grace or affability about it. But yeah, so the concept, me recommending this 6 songs out of 10 on here just in the pitch, or really 6 songs out of 9.5. I'm going to go ahead and give this album like a 7 out of 10 just within the pitch behind it. Just talk about some of these other songs. Like a real nice one on here would be Rolls Royce Rugs. It's a real nice type bop to kind of get within that tone. It's like a floaty and drowsy kind of smokage and like some vehicle commute. I would definitely feel like here, just a great sleepy kind of hotbox the whip type music kind of get within that tone. Very UGK like. This feels like something that Bun B would probably hop on nowadays just within the pitch behind it. Just takes back to that vintage kind of sluggish, just sleepy type vibes that you'd have just smoking hella in like a good lowrider type whip, something like that with the Dayton spoke, some of that type of particular fare. Just a good classic kind of like Southern playalistic Cadillac type music type fare just in the pitch behind it. I mean, obviously East Coast cats were doing this as well, but this is real, like, New York is pretty much pros at doing like these hotbox the whip type songs. This is obviously an example of that. Another one that has that particular flair would be the E Train. This is like a grandiose kind of smoke tune to kind of get in like a more lofty fashion, I'd have to say. Just some money get kind of having things type song kind of have within that tone. Just some good pizzazz about that in particular, and it's like a comfy kind of step out to kind of get here. So yeah, I would really say that there's like a good series of hotbox the whip type songs just in particular. Rolls Royce Rugs, the E Train, and Dolph Lundgren are definitely some excellent ones within that particular pitch behind it, but E Train is like the most kind of this more jazzy type one within the fare as far as that particular kind of goes. Rolls Royce is a little bit more southern fried, E Train is a little bit more grandiose, kind of like jazz, like a little bit more spiffy, I'd have to say. And then Dolph Lundgren is a nice one on here as well, just to talk about these hotbox songs. It's like a glazed kind of deep rumination kind of get within that tone, just in like City Traffic, I'd have to say here. Just some City Traffic, it's definitely like some deep rumination, like some City Traffic dredge kind of get within that aspect. Some typical slag kind of makeshift, I'd have to say, and just some usual day type fare. So it's just within the pitch behind it. Dolph Lundgren is probably the most sleepy out of these particular hotbox songs, I'd have to say. It's also a little bit sullen within the pitch behind it. Just typical kind of dredge, just sunset gazing within the fare. Just a real gold golden type song in like the big city, I'd have to say, within that particular aspect behind it. Just very drowsy, a lot of just sleepiness within this particular album. I do like the concept of just some of that type of flair, just reporting to work, getting the stuff done as far as those pitch kind of happens, standard routine as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. It's, I'd probably pick up some Arby's or some Taco Bell to spice things up as far as those pitch kind of happen, but the relative flair, just like another routine type work a day as far as those pitches can happen with this. So some good typeness. But probably one of my more favorite songs on here would have to be Caught a Lick. I definitely appreciate this one. Apart from Shit 'Em On, this is probably like the top two songs I like on this particular album. I'd have to say full blown in terms of like something that this album definitely needed full blown way more of. Caught a Lick is like a glaring kind of city, revved up kind of buzz to kind of get here. Probably the closest thing to like a club heat to kind of have off this particular project, and it's definitely like a song to get shit done. And just so this song kind of has like a wide awake type feeling just within the fashion behind it. So this is not as much like a nightclub song within the pitch, but just a little bit more city sparkle as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just being in your whip, just kind of like, okay, I'm going to be kind of in the mode to kind of be productive. Some of that type fair, just a little bit alert, just within the fashion, just kind of have some good jive, a little bit more excitement. Probably the opposite, like a direct 180 of a song like Dolph Lundgren, one of those type of pitches, or the E-Train, some of those type fairs I'd have to say, just a little bit more of like, hey, I'm kind of in the mode, I'm with it today, I'm not out of it, I'm just kind of within the pitch of feeling productive and just kind of within the bustle, or just like actually the concept of wanting to step out. But this does not happen very frequently on here. It's just kind of within the pitch. I definitely think this album needed way more songs like this one, especially like I was saying, like a DJ Muggs kind of club type song just for a little bit of step out. Maybe it's on some of Roc Marciano's early albums, but this is definitely like a sorely missed type concept off this particular product. But it's definitely a nice one. And then Aunt Bonnie is a nice one as well. It's like a looming and kind of darker operatic kind of on the town, I'd have to say, in like a dramatic, shrill fashion, I'd have to say here. This reminds me of like Kanye West, So Appalled, off of his album My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. I want to say that song had Jay-Z on there and some other folks just within the pitch behind it, but very operatic type pitch. Rick Ross has done a song like this also with French Montana off of Self-Made Volume 2, so it's just a good type pitch, kind of have some of that just kind of almost balcony type music just within the fair behind it, something within the aspect of just being able to say something in like a more lofty type position, like a more big city type nightclub. I mean, this within the concept of having a little bit more elevation amongst the night outings that you kind of go to. So this is kind of like some of that, this continues like the mafioso kind of grandiose type vibes of most of this particular product, but it's just within the appeal. This is probably like, when I said that there wasn't really like a night venue song on here, this is like the closest thing to like some step out in like a fashion that's not on the go or just out and about amongst the commute. But I look after it just within the tone, just being able to say that the concept behind this is the different kind of aspect of like venue type appeal. This feels like this feels like this situated in contemplation, like a mafioso type movie, more so than like dance club, shake your ass, pop some bottles as far as those pitches kind of happen, get some women to twerk as far as those pairs kind of happen within it. So it's just within the pitch, but it does work for what it is. It's a little bit more shrouded within the pitch. So that's just kind of the aspect. So yeah, this album gets a 7 out of 10. I'd have to say the social score I'm probably going to give like a 5.5 out of 10. I'd say the aspect behind it, there are some good gems on here, and I do feel like within the fashion, I realize maybe I'll give the social score like a 6.25 out of 10. I'll give the social score like a 6.25 because over half the album is recommendable, and these hotbox songs are pretty excellent on here. I do think that there's some lofty kind of loominess about Aunt Bonnie, and I do feel like Caught a Lick is like some good buzz type noise that has some good excitement about it. That's definitely one that this is exhilarating within a relative sense. And I do like the lead single Shit 'Em On. It's just some glimmering kind of restaurant date night type music kind of get within that tone. Like the sophistication of that particular one, but it's just kind of within the pitch in terms of like something, if you're not in the mood to kind of hotbox and whip some of that type fare, it doesn't have the much social aspect, and it's just not really any song that's going to have much notoriety. There's no guests on here, that sort of fare, just within the pitch. DJ Muggs has some good beats on here, but it's just within the concept that it kind of fits a most generally standard type theme, and a lot of these are not immediate within the pitch. It's just within the tone behind it. But some good type fare, like an underground type sense, has its buzz about it. The 6.25 social. In terms of the future, like apparently Roc Marciano is working on some stuff. I've seen him kind of pop up on some music. I've seen like the occasional post about him as far as those fairs kind of happens. He's got some stuff within the type fair. I think he's working on something with like the Alchemist or one of those type folks that I'd say within the pitch behind it. But I look after the aspect. This is a good type bop to kind of get here. Definitely appreciate the aspect of the team up with DJ Muggs and Roc Marciano. Some pretty excellent type fair. It does have some gems on here within a sense. I kind of would have liked for it to have been a little bit more socially like commencing as far as those pitch kind of happen, but it's definitely some pretty aspect type stuff that has some wicked type flair, and most of this project is pretty relatively heavy hitting.